The belittled behemoths, February 25, 1945. 14:30 hours. A snow-lashed ridge outside Germany, barely 20 miles from the swollen Roe River and the last great barrier before the Rhine. The wind cuts like razor wire across the open commander's head. You can almost taste the diesel fumes mixing with the wet iron smell of the fresh snow as the 46 Pershing, nicknamed Fireball by its crew, creaks to a stop behind a shattered stone wall. Tracks bite deep, throwing up frozen clods that rattle against the hull like spent shell casings. Inside, the air is thick with the heat of 5 men breathing hard. Staff Sergeant Robert Bob McVeigh, Tank Commander, 3rd Armored Division, 33rd Armored Regiment, F Company, wedges his shoulders against the cupola and scans the gray tree line through binoculars. Fogged by his own breath, eyes open. Boys, Intel says Kraut's got tigers stugging up there. We're the new kids on the block, let's not embarrass the family. In the gunner's seat, Corporal Jimmy, Red Harlan thumbs the 90mm breech, chambering around with a metallic clack that echoes through the fighting compartment. The loader, Private First Class Tommy Ruiz, wipes sweat from his forehead despite the cold. Driver Private Eddie Kowalski nurses the throttle, feeling the big Ford Gaff engine growl like an angry bear beneath his boots. They are all 22, 23 years old. Most of them still smell like the stateside training grounds at Fort Knox, where these Pershings were rushed through testing only months ago. Across the lines, in a camouflaged tiger eye hull half buried behind a hedgerow. 200 yards away, Oberleutnant Heinrich Kessler of the 12th SS Panzer Division lowers his own field glasses and chuckles into his throat mic. His voice crackles over the German net, low and mocking. Listen to this. Boys, the Amis finally brought their heavy toys. 46 tons, they say. Looks like a fat Sherman that ate too many pancakes. Late to the dance yet, while we've been bleeding on these roads for 3 years. They send us museum pieces. We'll turn them into bonfires before they even see the Rhine. Laughter ripples through the Tiger's intercom. Veterans of the Bulge and Normandy men who had watched Panthers and Tigers shrugged off Sherman fire like rain pass around a flask. Kessler's words spread fast. Radio intercepts prisoner chatter. A captured American field manual that called the M26 the answer to the Tiger. The German tankers had a simpler name for it. Der Versib, Teteriese, the late giant. Derision traveled faster than the Pershings ever could. Too heavy, too slow, too late. The jokes were already carved into the sides of shell crates and scratched onto Tiger gun barrels. Back on the ridge, McVeigh doesn't hear the laughter, but he feels the weight of it anyway. Every Sherman crew they passed on the march had ribbed them. Finally showing up. We've been holding the line while you boys got your beauty sleep. The Pershings had rolled off the docks at Antwerp in January, shipped straight from the proving grounds because Patton and Bradley finally screamed loud enough. 20 of Tim 10 to the 3rd Armored, 10 to the 9th. Hand-picked crews, new 90mm guns that could punch through anything the Krauts had. On paper, but paper doesn't bleed. McVeigh's voice drops to a whisper over the intercom. Driver, forward slow. Gunner, traverse right. We're overwatching that crossroads. Anything moves, you put a 90 right through its teeth. The Pershing lurches. Snow hisses under the tracks. Harlan's periscope fogs for a heartbeat. Ruiz slams another AP round home. Kowalski mutters a quick prayer under his breath. None of them know that Oberleutnant Kessler's Tiger eye is already 0'd in 80. 80-meter barrel tracking the big American silhouette against the white ridge like a predator that has waited 3 long years for something worth killing. The first 88 cracks out at 600 yards. The sound is a whip crack, followed by a freight train roar. Fireball's mantlet takes the hit square on the gunner's side port. Inside the turret, the world explodes in red. Harlan never even screams. The shell punches through the narrow slit, kills him and Ruiz instantly. Sprays the compartment with blood and shattered glass. A second round slams the muzzle brake. Detonates the round already chambered. Flame licks back into the breech. Smoke boils up the turret basket. The third shell glances off the turret side. Shears the commander's cupola hatch clean off McVeigh ducts. Just in time. Steel shrapnel singing past his helmet. The big Pershing shudders, but doesn't die. Kowalski slams it into reverse, engines screaming, smoke pouring from the turret. McVeigh is half out of the hatch, coughing, yelling for the crew to bail. They tumble out into the snow. 3 survivors, 2 dead inside while the tank rolls backward under its own power, tracks throwing sparks. Across the field, Kessler's crew whoops. C. Leidensoft, 1 more dead Ami. Heavy for the scrap heap. The Pershing disappears behind the ridge, trailing black smoke. Fireball is out of the fight. For now. But the Germans don't know something the American crews already feel in their bones. These Heavies are built different, and the crews who just watched their brothers die aren't laughing. They're remembering. The avenging strike, February 27th, 1945. The same snow-covered fields outside Elsdorf, now scarred black where Fireball had burned the night before. The winds still howled, but something had changed in the air, thicker with the smell of cordite and revenge. The surviving crews of F Company didn't sleep. They spent the night patching wounds, hauling out the dead, and listening to the low rumble of approaching reinforcements. By dawn, another Pershing serial number 40. No fancy nickname yet. Just E Company's Heavy rolled forward under Lieutenant John Jack Irwin's command. Fresh crew, but the same cold fury. They had seen the wreck of Fireball towed back, mantled shattered, blood frozen on the turret floor. Word spread like wildfire through the 33rd Armored Regiment. The new Heavies weren't invincible, but neither were the legends. Irwin crouched in the commander's cupola, eyes narrowed against the glare bouncing off the snow. "Driver, ease us up to that ridge line. Gunner, load H. VAP. We're not here to sightsee." In the gunner's seat, Corporal Bill Tex McCoy cradled the controls of the 90mm M3 gun like it was an old friend. The new High Velocity, armor-piercing rounds. T30 e 16. HVAP felt different in the loader's hands. Sleeker. Meaner. Private First Class. Miguel Mike Santos. "Round up, Lieutenant. Let's make him pay for Red and Tommy." Across the frozen no-man's land, Oberleutnant Kessler's Tiger Eye had moved overnight, now hull down behind a ruined barn, its long 88mm barrel still warm from yesterday's kill. His crew was cocky, passing around stale bread and jokes about Amy pancakes. They send their best and we still cook them in under a minute. Kessler boasted over the net, "The late giants bleed just like the Shermans." But the Germans didn't see the second. Pershing cresting the ridge at 900 yards, silhouetted for only a heartbeat before dropping into a shallow depression. Irwin's voice crackled calm over the intercom. "Target. Tiger. 12 o'clock. Barn corner. Range 900. On the... wait, the 90mm. Roar." The HVAP round streaked out in a flat, screaming trajectory, leaving a faint tracer ghost in the cold air. It struck the Tiger's turret front dead on. The thick German armor designed to laugh at 76mm Shermans cracked under the impact. Spall flew inside like shrapnel from hell. Kessler felt the hammer blow, his loader screaming as fragments tore through the fighting compartment. "Again! Again!" Irwin barked. McCoy traversed a hair, corrected for the recoil. Second shot standard T-33AP. This time, it punched straight through the weakened turret ring, detonated the ready rack inside. The Tiger erupted in a volcanic bloom of orange fire and black smoke. Ammunition cooked off in a chain of thunderclaps, the massive 88mm barrel lifting skyward like a dying beast before the whole hull shuddered and settled, flames licking out every hatch. At 1,200 yards, 2 Panzer IVs, supporting the Tiger, tried to swing wide for a flanking shot. Big mistake. The Pershing's gun spoke twice, more flat cracks that echoed across the fields. Both Mark IVs were punched through their side armor at ranges most American tankers only dreamed of. Crews bailed into the snow, only to be cut down by high-explosive follow-ups that turned the white ground red. Inside the Pershing, the crew whooped, despite the ringing in their ears. Santos slapped McCoy on the back. "That's for Fireball. You sons of bitches." Kessler's Tiger burned 4 hours, a funeral pyre visible 4 miles. German radio traffic that morning carried a different tono. More easy laughter about late giants. The word spread. The American Heavies had teeth. Real teeth. The 90mm didn't just scratch the paint. It pierced the hide and gutted the beast from the inside. B afternoon, Task Force Wellborn pushed on toward the Erft Canal. And the road to Cologne, more Pershings joined the spearhead. Crews who had once endured the mocking grins from Sherman veterans now rode taller. The derision wasn't gone. Entirely old habits died hard, but it was quieter, replaced by something sharper. Respect earned in blood and fire. Yet, the real test still lay ahead. The Rhine River, the last natural fortress of the Reich, and behind its banks waited the true kings of the German Panzer. 40 massive 70-10 King Tigers of the heavy SS battalions. Tanks so armored that even the standard 90mm struggled at long range. Tanks whose crews still believed the war could be turned if only the Heavies would dare come close enough. The Pershing crews knew it too, as they rumbled eastward through shattered villages, hatches open, wind whipping their faces. One thought burned in every mind. We're not late anymore. We're coming for you. And this time, we hit harder. The duel at the Cathedral, March 6th, 1945. The shattered streets of Cologne, Germany barely a mile from the mighty Rhine and the twin spires of the Cologne Cathedral rising like blackened fingers against the smoke-choked sky. The roar of artillery had faded to a distant growl, replaced by the crunch of tank tracks over rubble and the occasional crack of small arms fire echoing between gutted buildings. Lieutenant John Jack Owen's Pershing, now battle-scarred but repaired from the Elsdorf scrap, crept forward at the head of Easy Company's armor column. The big 46-ton machine moved with surprising grace for its size. Its wide tracks grinding brick dust into the cobblestones. "Keep it slow," Irwin muttered into the intercom, eyes glued to the periscope. This is Panther country. Eyes on every window, every alley. In the gunner's seat, Corporal Biltex McCoy sweated, despite the March chill seeping through the open hatches. Loader Private First Class Miguel Santos had another HVAP round ready, the tungsten cord dart gleaming dully in the dim light of the fighting compartment. Driver Eddie Kowalski transferred from the rebuilt Fireball. Crew nursed the throttle, feeling every jolt as the Pershing nosed past the burned-out hulks of two Shermans that had tried this street minutes earlier. Suddenly, movement. A low, predatory shape lurked in the shadows of the ruined Hauptbahnhof train station. A German Panther, its long 75mm gun swinging toward the American column like a viper striking. The Panther fired first. Its high-velocity rounds slammed into the lead Sherman ahead of Irwin's Pershing, detonating with a deafening boom that sent the medium tank slewing sideways in flames. Crewmen bailed, screaming, their uniforms already alight. The second Sherman tried to back up, but the Panther's gun tracked it mercilessly. Another hit. Another fireball. Irwin's voice cut through the chaos like a whip. Target. Panther. Left side. 200 yards. On the way, the M26's 90mm gun thundered. The shell streaked across the intersection in a flat arc and struck the Panther square in the side of its turret. The thick, sloped armor deadly against Sherman's cracked. Under the impact, Spall erupted inside. The German tank shuddered, but didn't die immediately. McCoy corrected a fraction. Up to. Fire. Second round. This one punched clean through the Panther's mantlet, detonating the ammunition stowage. The big cat erupted in a volcanic explosion that lit the cathedral square like midday. Debris rained down twisted steel, burning fuel, and the acrid stink of cordite. The Pershing crew didn't cheer. Not yet. They knew the real monsters were still out there, closer to the river. The King Tigers of the remnants of the 9th and 12th SS Panzer. Division 70-ton behemoths. With frontal armor so thick that even the 90mm needed luck or point-blank range to kill. German crews called them Königs. American tankers had started calling them Royal Tigers with a mix of dread and determination. As the column pushed deeper into Cologne, pushing toward the Hohenzollern Bridge and the Rhine beyond, the mockery from earlier weeks had vanished entirely. Sherman crews who once joked about the late Heavies now waved them forward with genuine respect. "Go get him, big boys," one shouted as a Pershing rumbled past his disabled Easy-8. But the Germans weren't finished. Radio intercepts picked up frantic calls. Heavy Panthers repositioning near the riverbank. King Tigers dug in. Hull down. Their 88mm KWK-43 guns capable of reaching out and touching the Americans from over a mile away on open ground. Irwin's Pershing reached the edge of the cathedral plaza as dusk began to fall. The massive stone edifice loomed overhead, scarred but still standing as silent witness to the death throes of the Reich. In the gathering gloom, the crew spotted it. A low, menacing silhouette partially concealed behind rubble near the river approach. A King Tiger. Its enormous turret traversed slowly, the long barrel searching for prey. The distance was closing fast under 800 yards now. Urban chaos, turning the fight into a knife fight between giants. McCoy's hands tightened on the controls. Santos slammed home another round. Irwin took a deep breath, the freezing wind whipping across his face through the cupola. "This is it, boys," he said quietly. "No more jokes. No more late to the party. We were built for this bastard." The 90mm gun elevated slightly. The King Tiger's commander must have seen them at the same moment. The massive German tank began to swing its turret with surprising speed for its size. 2 heavy tanks. One river to cross, one last barrier before the heart of Germany lay open. The Kings of the Rhine, March 30th, 1945. The eastern outskirts of Cologne, where the last ruined buildings gave way to open fields, rolling toward the swollen, gray ribbon of the Rhine River. The air hung heavy with the stench of burning fuel and wet earth churned by thousands of tracks and boots. The cathedral's spires still loomed behind them, scarred sentinels over a city finally falling silent. Lieutenant Jack Irwin's Pershing Eagle 7, now bearing fresh weld patches from earlier scraps, led the spearhead of Task Force Weld. The big machine ground forward at a deliberate pace, its 90mm gun sweeping the horizon like a predator's gaze. The crew had changed slightly after Cologne's brutal street fighting. New gunner Corporal Clarence Smoyer, a steady hand who had already proven himself against that Panther in the Dumplin. Lodo Santos remained, his face streaked with grime. Driver. Kowalski gripped the levers tighter than usual. Word had come down the net. Elements of the German heavy panzer battalions, remnants of the 506th and 512th Schwerpanzer, Abteilungen had pulled back across the river or were dug in on the western bank to cover the withdrawal. King Tigers, the 70-10 monsters with frontal armor thick enough to turn aside most Allied shells like hailstones. Their crews, hardened veterans of the Eastern Front and the Bulge, still believed one good stand could bleed the Americans dry before the Rhine became the final moat. Irwin scanned the tree line and low ridges ahead through his binoculars. Gunner. Load. AFAP. Driver. Keep us hull down behind that rise. If we see a Royal Tiger, we close fast. Don't give them the long-range advantage. Smoyer's voice came back steady. Hefa-po! Sir, that 90's hungry. Today, the column advanced under sporadic artillery. Then, at roughly 1,200 yards, the nightmare materialized. 2 low, hulking silhouettes, partially concealed in a sunken roadbed near the river approach. King Tigers, their massive 88mm KWK-43 barrels elevated slowly, tracking the American advance with mechanical menace. One began firing almost immediately. 88 rounds screamed overhead, detonating in the trees behind the Pershings with a thunderous crack. Contact! 2 King Tigers. 11 o'clock. Irwin barked. Driver, forward get us to 800 yards. The Pershing surged, engine roaring as it breasted the low ground. The second King Tiger fired. Its shell struck the ground short, throwing up a fountain of mud and snow that splattered the American tank's glacis. Close. Too close. Smoyer didn't wait for orders. He laid the reticle on the lead King Tiger's turret front, the thickest part, but also the most vulnerable to a lucky angle at closer range. On the way, The 90mm bark. The HVAP round flashed across the field in a blurred streak and slammed into the King Tiger's mantlet. The impact was visible even at distance, a bright spark and a shower of sparks. The German beast rocked but didn't blow up. Its gun traversed back toward them with surprising speed for such a heavy turret. Again, Erwin shouted. Second shot. This one struck lower, glancing off the sloped glacis, but cracking the weld seams. Spall must have flown inside the King Tiger's machine gun fire, stuttered and stopped for a heartbeat. The Germans answered. An 88 round hammered the Pershing's turret side at an oblique angle. The heavy armor held, but the shock slammed the crew like a giant fist. Santos was thrown against the breech. Kowalski fought the controls as the tank shuddered. Keep firing. Erwin's voice was raw. We're built for this. Smoyer corrected elevation by a hair. Third round standard AP. This time, it punched through the weakened mantlet area and detonated deep inside the fighting compartment. A secondary explosion followed as ammunition began to cook off. The King Tiger's turret lifted slightly, then settled as flames erupted from every hatch. Black smoke billowed skyward, marking the death of another legend. The second King Tiger tried to withdraw, backing toward the riverbank while its gun kept barking, but the Pershings had momentum now. Another American heavy joined the fray from the flankets, 90mm joining the chorus. Together, they poured fire into the retreating monster. At under 700 yards, the 90mm found the gaps. A shot to the track immobilized it. Follow-ups tore into the thinner side armor. The second King Tiger brewed up in a spectacular fireball. Its massive hull glowing cherry red as internal stores detonated. The Rhine lay just beyond, its waters reflecting the orange pyres. German infantry scattered from the river crossing points, some plunging into the cold current in desperation. The mockery from weeks earlier, the jokes about late heavies and Amy pancakes, was ashes now, scattered on the same wind that carried the smoke of burning canik. Erwin leaned out of the cupola, the freezing wind whipping his face as he surveyed the burning hulks. They thought we were soft. They thought we were late. He keyed the company net. All stations. This is Eagle 7. The Kings are dead. Push for the river. We own this ground now. The crews who had buried friends at Elsdorf and bled in Cologne's streets felt it in their bones. The derision had dissolved in the heat of these duels. The Pershings had slugged it out with the heaviest armor. The Reich could throw at them and pierce their thick hides when it mattered most, but the Rhine itself still barred the way. Bridges were down or wired for demolition. The final advance into the heart of Germany would demand one more gamble, and somewhere downstream, at a place called Remagen. Fate was already preparing a different kind of surprise. The bridge and the final crossing, March 7th, 1945. 1600 hours, Remagen. Germany, the Ludendorff Bridge spanning the Rhine still intact, its iron latticework trembling under distant artillery fire while American boots and tracks thundered toward it in a race against German demolition charges. The Pershings of the 9th Armored Division 5 T-26E3 is assigned to the 14th Tank Battalion couldn't risk the weakened bridge. Too heavy, too wide for the pontoons being rushed into place. But their crews watched from the western bank as infantry from the 9th Armored's Combat Command dashed across under fire, cutting wires, dodging machine gun bursts, and tossing satchel charges into the river to neutralize the remaining explosives. One Pershing, hull down on the heights overlooking the river, provided covering fire with its 90mm gun, blasting German positions on the far shore and silencing a stubborn flak battery that raked the bridge girder. Lieutenant John Owen's Eagle 7 from the 3rd Armade had linked up with the Remagen thrust by late afternoon. The crew battle-hardened now, faces gaunt from days of constant movement sat in their steel fortress. Engine idling as engineers frantically worked to reinforce the bridge for heavier traffic. Across the gray, Suogen Rhine, the eastern bank, bristled with hidden threats. 88mm guns, Bolsturm infantry, and whatever remaining heavy panzers the collapsing Reich could scrape together. The mockery was long dead. No more radio chatter about late giants or Amy pancakes. Captured German prisoners spoke of the new American heavies with grim respect. The big ones with the long gun, they kill our tigers like we killed your Shermans. The Pershing crews had avenged Fireball's losses at Elsdorf. They had dueled Panthers in Cologne's Cathedral Square and slugged it out with King Tigers near the river approaches. Their 90mm guns had pierced the thickest hides the Germans could weld, yet the river remained the final gate. By March 12th, pontoon ferries strong enough for the Pershings began operating downstream from Rhine. Owen's tank was among the first heavies to cross on a reinforced raft, the Rhine's current slapping against the pontoons while the crew kept hatches buttoned, ready for trouble on the far side. As the big M26 rumbled ashore onto German soil east of the Rhine, the emotional weight settled over them like the morning mist. They had made it. The belittled behemoths were now the tip of the spear driving into the heart of the Reich. No more waiting for the heavies to arrive. Te Guerriere, and the final advances belonged to them. In the weeks that followed, scattered duels continued. A lone Super Pershing variant fitted with an even more powerful 90mm gun would later trade blows with another, King Tiger near Dessau in April, proving once and for all that American armor could meet the German giants on equal or better terms. But for most Pershing crews, the Rhine crossing marked the turning point. The derision had dissolved, not in words, but in the flash of 90mm fire and the roar of burning panzers. Staff Sergeant Bob McVeigh, survivor of the original Fireball, now commanding a repaired and upgraded Pershing, summed it up over the company net as his tank crested a ridge deep in Germany. They laughed because we were late. We answered because we were heavy. The war was entering its death throes. Berlin lay ahead. The Reich that had once ruled Europe with steel and fire was being crushed under the tracks of the very machines its tankers had mocked until the duels at the Rhine taught them otherwise. The Pershings rolled on. END